Hello, I'm Africa 54 Managing Editor Vincent McCory in for #the Words. It's Monday, January the 3rd. This is Africa 54.
Sudan's Prime Minister resigns amid a stalemate between military and civilian leaders. As Libya's broken political system stretches into 2022, the illegal migrant situation presents new challenges. And Cameroon's political conflict threatens to disrupt the Africa Cup of Nations.
Sudanese Prime Minister Abdalla Hamdok has resigned just 6 weeks after returning to his post in a deal with military coup leaders. Flora Bradley-Watson reports.
Just 6 weeks after he returned to the job, Sudan's Prime Minister Abdalla Hamdok announced on Sunday he was stepping down. Hamdok was ousted from power in October in a military coup, only to be reinstated a month later in a controversial deal with the military. He has since failed to name a government, as protests have continued against the army. In a televised address, Hamdok said he had tried in vain to forge a consensus between deeply divided factions.
I tried as much as I could to avoid our country slipping into a catastrophe. And now, our country is going through a dangerous turning point that may threaten its entire survival if it's not remedied soon.
Hours before his speech, security forces fired tear gas at demonstrators in Khartoum as they marched towards the presidential palace. At least 3 of the protesters were killed, according to a doctors' committee aligned with the movement. The demonstrators want the military to play no role in government and demand a transition to free elections. Hamdok's resignation throws the country's political future even deeper into uncertainty. He became leader 3 years ago under a power-sharing agreement between the military and civilians, following the overthrow of longtime leader Omar al-Bashir.
Flora Bradley-Watson of Reuters fired that report. Still in the East African region, Kenyan authorities say they are pursuing suspected al-Shabaab terrorists who killed six people early Monday in Lamu County on the border with Somalia. Kenya's Lamu County Commissioner Irongo Macharia says suspected al-Shabaab militants attacked and killed the villagers in the county's Widu area. However, there was no immediate claim of responsibility for the attack. Kenya's Citizen TV reported that at least 1 victim was shot, 1 hacked to death with a machete, and others were burned alive. VOA has not independently verified the accounts. Widu area residents say the attackers also torched several houses, though some residents speaking to local media questioned if the violence was the work of the Islamist militants or related to local politics. A major fire that erupted Sunday at South Africa's parliament in Cape Town and threatened the National Assembly building seems to be under control on Monday. The fire sent a thick, dark column of smoke into the sky. The blaze caused extensive damage, collapsing the roof and gutting an entire floor in one building. A man in his 50s was arrested in connection with the blaze. The fire broke out in one of the older buildings in Parliament's complex, forcing authorities to set up a security cordon near the cathedral where anti-apartheid Archbishop Desmond Tutu has been buried hours before. Public Works Minister Patricia de Lille spoke to reporters saying that contrary to what has been reported earlier, the National Assembly was still safe, as well as the visitors' entrance to the Parliament.
I thought I must come out and tell you that the fire brigade and the fire services have got the situation under control. What you see behind me, it is not the National Assembly that's on fire. What what is coming out there is an extractor that's pulling all the smoke from the old assembly out here over the National Assembly. So I thought I must just tell you the National Assembly is still safe. 120 Plain Street is still safe. And we're trying to contain the fire just where it is now.
Well, so far, there have been no reports of casualties or injuries. Firefighters arrived quickly and used a crane to spray water on the flames. Around 60 firefighters with specialized equipment and 6 fire trucks were dispatched to the scene. Initial reports indicated the fire started in an office space. The chief of Libya's National Commission for Human Rights says the North African nation is facing a grave situation of illegal migrants as the country's political instability stretches into 2022. Hundreds of thousands of migrants are in Libya living in dire conditions. The International Organization for Migration estimates that at least 1,500 migrants drowned in the central Mediterranean Sea in 2021, and more than 30,000 have been intercepted or rescued. The northern Mediterranean coast of Libya remains treacherous, reckless, and uncontrollable, with massive crowds and gatherings of illegal immigrants. With only a small fraction waiting for a legitimate way to cross into Europe, many African and Asian migrants are waiting for their proper time to cross from Libya. Droves of armored vehicles are patrolling the streets of Libya in Cameroon's conflict-torn southwest region ahead of the African Cup of Nations soccer finals starting on January 9th. Separatist militants are vowing to disrupt the event. Cameroon is hosting the tournament in 6 cities, but security is potentially most at threat in Libya, a city on the tropical Atlantic coast, whose surrounding region has been rocked by armed attacks since war broke out in 2017. The conflict, in which armed groups are trying to form a breakaway state called Ambazonia, has killed at least 3,000 people and forced nearly 1 million to flee. Violence in the region has worsened as separatists increase their use of improvised explosives. Insecurity is just one issue facing the tournament. Concerns about the readiness of stadiums and the spread of the Omicron COVID-19 variant have also made headlines in recent weeks. Botswana's President Mokwetsi Masisi is in mandatory self-isolation after testing positive for COVID-19 during routine testing, according to a government spokesperson. Vice President Slamba Tsogabane is assuming the president's responsibilities until further notice, while Masisi is in isolation. New coronavirus infections are rising sharply in the diamond-rich southern African countries since this detection of the Omicron variant late in 2021 to an average of 2,500 every 3 days from under 300 over the same period before Omicron. But health officials say hospitalizations are not spiking. Botswana has managed to fully vaccinate 71% of its eligible population of around 1.3 million people. In addition to the many other difficulties the COVID-19 pandemic has brought to the United States, problems continue with the supply chain, and the shortage of truck drivers continues. Maria Prus has more in this story narrated by Anna Rice.
Truck drivers needed, flexible work hours, high salary. These ads are becoming more and more common in the U.S., where 70% of all goods are transported cross-country by truck, according to American trucking associations. According to local truck drivers associations, today there are roughly 80,000 job openings for truck drivers. Yuri Shalak has been working in logistics for a trucking company for over 16 years. And he says the pandemic has made things significantly worse.
The average age of truck drivers in the US is 47. Those who are over 60 simply retire. And there are not as many younger drivers coming in.
Shalak owns a trucking dispatch company in Chicago and has about 150 drivers and truck owners working for him. He says in the last 2 years, there's been an increase in the logistics workload because more Americans are ordering products online. But the trucking industry hasn't changed to accommodate a changing world.
They're consistently underutilized by something like 40%. the way we conventionally schedule our truck drivers for pickup and delivery, and then the way we treat them with a particularly low value on their time.
A truck driver's workday is strictly standardized. Drivers are permitted to spend no more than 11 hours a day driving. They must move quickly to load or unload their vehicles, or they lose work that day.
There's a lot of frustration, you know, a lot of a sense of disrespect. Drivers talk a lot about, you know, respect.
On average, U.S. truck drivers are paid a decent salary, about $25 an hour. So it's no surprise many try their hand at this job, but not that many end up staying.
Statistics in America show that every year a trucking company will have a totally new team of drivers. That means those drivers who joined in January won't be there in a year. So owners of these companies need to try hard to make people stay.
The Biden administration hopes to decrease the shortage of truck drivers by opening more training programs for drivers. For example, programs that target former military personnel. But experts say it is proving increasingly difficult to motivate people. The situation is different for self-employed truckers. Dmytro Knatyuk has been working as a truck driver for over 13 years.
I'm self-employed. I drive my own truck. And for me, the situation right now is actually pretty good. Compared to the last few years, this year I had one of the highest transportation rates I've seen in the last decade.
And Knatyuk adds, despite the potential difficulties, he's been happy with his work.
On average, our salaries are 2 to 3 times higher than the US median.
Experts believe in the next few years, the shortage of microchips needed to produce cars and trucks will not go away. So in the near future, the price of transporting goods, as well as prices for these goods, will only go up. For Maria Prus in Washington, Anna Rice, VOA News.
Celebrity chef and television personality Brenna Herrera and her family take the idea of giving very seriously during the holidays. Maxime Masklakov has the story.
700 homeless people and others in need in the Washington area received free hot meals on Christmas Day. It's the 6th year in a row celebrity chef and TV personality Bren Herrera, together with her family, held the charity event called Bren Plus Friends.
So the point of Bren and Friends right now is not only to serve the community, but also to let the people who need food, shelter, don't have family, don't have friends, don't have that connection. We want to let them know that we see them, that we value them, that they are not alone on Christmas Day, and that they are loved, no matter what their circumstances, financially or otherwise.
Herrera was just a child when her parents started making home-cooked meals for homeless persons in the Washington area back in the late 1980s. They wanted to show their children that Christmas is not just about gifts, but also about remembering those who need love and care.
When you consider that we came from Cuba and we're very intimately aware of what food disparity looks like, what food deserts look like, what rationed food looks like in that system, it's almost inherent for me to know and understand that we have to do something for the people.
Herrera's initiative has become more and more ambitious every year. Instead of one park, volunteers now serve food at 3 different locations and distribute donated winter clothes. This year they managed to feed 100 more people than last year.
We do it every year for the past 6 years, so I've had a lot of good memories from serving people. Memorable ones being, I think 2 or 3 years ago, I have a skate group that started assisting, and as we're a lot more mobile, especially during the pandemic, last year was pretty challenging because there weren't a lot of people in parks like we were used to. So teaming up with the skate group made it easy to actually deliver to people that weren't in specific parks.
This year's menu consisted of smoked chicken, meatballs, fried potatoes, green bean casserole, and traditional turkey stuffing.
So these are basic roast potatoes. So we're actually doing roast potatoes with salt, pepper, a little chicken stock. Going to broil it in the oven, get a brown on it, and then refrigerate it for tomorrow. then heat it up for Christmas Day for serving.
Herrera's helpers are mostly members of her family and friends, as well as people she has known for a long time.
It's been a few years, ever since she picked it back up. And I've known Brent for probably close to 10 years.
Herrera says her goal is to create a foundation that would serve the communities not just during Christmas, but throughout the year. Maxim Moskalko for VOA News, Arlington, Virginia.
We are excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We are also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, the world's largest technology event is still on course despite last-minute COVID-19 related cancellations. But first, here's Haiti Adams to tell us what's coming up on Wednesday's Straight Talk Africa.
Be sure to join me on the next Straight Talk Africa as we discuss the return of Africa's stolen art. France has repatriated 26 looted colonial-era artifacts to Benin. Now museums in Europe and the US are rethinking what to do with their African art collections. We'll speak to artists and museum curators about the colonial past of Africa's art and its future around the world. Join me, Haiti Adams, on the next Straight Talk Africa.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linor Moudou, in Washington, every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
For the second time in a month, U.S. President Joe Biden has spoken directly to Russian President Vladimir Putin and urged him to de-escalate the situation along its border with Ukraine. Putin continues to amass soldiers near the border, but U.S. administration officials say Putin is providing no assurances of his intentions. VOA's Anita Powell reports from Washington.
And now, round two. U.S. President Joe Biden last spoke with Russian President Vladimir Putin less than a month ago. The two spoke again on Thursday, and Biden urged Putin to de-escalate tensions with Ukraine, the White House said, after the 50-minute call ended. The high-stakes phone call came as the Russian leader continues to amass tens of thousands of troops along the Ukrainian border, as seen in this video released last week by the Russian Defense Ministry. Biden administration officials have said that the two had a serious and substantive discussion. But a senior administration official said, when asked, that Putin made no declarations as to intentions. High-level officials from the two nations will again meet in early January in Geneva, without the two presidents. Ukraine's President, Volodymyr Zelensky, tweeted Wednesday that U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken vowed full U.S. support for Ukraine in countering Russian aggression. Earlier in December, he toured the front and said his soldiers were ready. Although analysts seem to doubt Putin will invade Ukraine, they worry that tens of thousands of battle-juiced troops in the region could accidentally or intentionally spark a war.
If he is bluffing, then it is a very serious bluff, which entails particular risk to Putin, because he has to make sure that 100,000 troops plus are occupied and ready, but not taking the initiative themselves before an order is given. So I think that it is just simply a situation that is fraught with peril on both sides.
So now what? The White House has said repeatedly that there will be significant consequences if Russia invades, including harsh economic sanctions and increased security support for Ukraine. But some analysts say Putin is just posturing.
Putin successfully creates a sense of emergency. If you notice, the language is almost the same. He's about to start a war. He's about to invade Ukraine. And apparently, the White House goes for it. I wouldn't, because as I wrote and I also spoke about this, Putin is not going to invade Ukraine at this time. He's playing to his domestic audience. All of this is a part of the game that Putin is playing, and I think will continue to play at least until his elections in 2024.
The next round of bilateral talks starts January 10th in Geneva. Until then, will things stay quiet on the Ukrainian front? Anita Powell, VOA News, Washington.
It is a chaotic time for the Consumer Electronics Show 2022, the world's largest technology event. Last-minute COVID-19 related cancellations are wreaking havoc on the organizers' plan to host exhibitors and welcome visitors in person in Las Vegas and online. But as viewers Julie Tabo reports, the show will go on.
The pandemic may be raging and events cancelled left and right, but the world's largest technology event will go on in a hybrid way, both in Las Vegas and online. More than 2,000 exhibitors from around the world will present their products and services at the Consumer Electronics Show.
We're going to have areas focused specifically on food technology, on space technology, and then also on things like NFTs.
CES will, as usual, be hosting some of the biggest names in the tech industry.
Everybody from LG, Samsung, Sony, Canon.
There will also be startups and smaller companies present. On the space technology front, one company attending the show, called Zero G, offers people an opportunity to experience weightlessness without having to go into orbit. A specially modified Boeing 727 flies at an altitude above 5.7 kilometers and in specific formations to create a weightless environment, allowing passengers to float, flip, and soar as if they were in space. As in years past, there will also be a strong presence by the automotive industry, with a focus this year on self-driving vehicles, including trucks.
We have BMW, we have Amazon, we have new companies like a company called Too Simple who is doing self-driving freight trucks.
The resurgence of COVID-19 means fewer in-person exhibitors. For example, about 120 companies will be coming from China, down from 700. That's due to the pandemic and quarantine periods, Chupka says. But the international presence, regardless, will be big, she says, with pre-registration numbers showing about 30% of exhibitors coming from overseas. She says some fast-growing areas in technology will play a bigger role in the show than in previous years.
Obviously, digital health has been, a tremendous growth area, especially in the last 2 years with the pandemic, with telemedicine and wearables and ways that people can better monitor themselves.
Another area is home technology, where companies like One Valet are making residential living smarter and safer.
We've seen a lot of progress in smart homes, but we haven't seen it in apartments and condos, and that's what we're really focused on. Now, since COVID, a lot of folks, they no longer want to touch any more door handles. So as a resident, you actually have the ability to use your phone as a digital key. I can click on the resident app, main entry door, and just like this, you saw the door unlocked.
For CES's Karen Chupka, the show is about the global tech community connecting with the world.
For those who get to come in person, they'll have that opportunity to do it live, face-to-face. And for those that can't come in person, that they'll still get that opportunity to see those new ideas and create those new relationships, but do it digitally.
Julie Tabo, VOA News.
The new year signals the beginning of the Oscars race. Oscar nominees distinguished themselves in categories such as film direction, cinematography, and acting. The message of this film is also significant, especially in relation to the times we live in. Viewers Penelope Pulu looks at some of these promising contenders.
I never seen you before. You're not Puerto Rican.
Steven Spielberg's remake of West Side Story is inspired by the 1957 Broadway musical of the same name. Spielberg says the story about two young star-crossed lovers from ethnically different rival gangs in New York City is as relevant today as it was more than 60 years ago.
Divisions between unlike-minded people is as old as time itself. And the divisions between the Sharks and the Jets in 1957, which inspired musical, were profound, but not as divided as we find ourselves today.
The film is expected to garner Oscar nominations, says Variety's Film Awards editor Clayton Davis.
And we'll find a lot of love also in the acting races because Ariana DeBose, who plays Anita, is playing the same role that Rita Moreno played 60 years ago. And if she wins, which it looks like she has a really good shot of possibly doing, she'll be the second Latina to ever win supporting actress.
Psychological thriller Nightmare Alley, directed by Guillermo del Toro, blurs the lines between what is real and what is not. Bradley Cooper plays anti-hero Stanton Carlyle, a drifter on the run who joins a traveling carnival. The star-studded cast includes Cate Blanchett. Del Toro co-wrote the script with his wife Kim Morgan.
It reflects the anxiety of these times. It feels, that, at least that's what we felt writing it and doing it.
A lot about the American dream, which is something that still exists and is something that's very hard for people to attain.
And then the flip side is always a nightmare.
Yeah.
Adam McKay's dark satire Don't Look Up hits home as a massive comet threatens to destroy Earth. Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence play two astronomers trying to persuade the world to act before it is too late.
There's a comet headed directly towards Earth. Do you know how many the world is ending?
Meryl Streep plays the demagogic American president who plays down the catastrophic threat. Clayton Davis says McKay's satire is all too real.
I laughed for the first 30, 40 minutes, and then I stopped laughing because I said, oh no, this is too real, because this is tomorrow.
Feel-good movies, such as King Richard, are favorited by critics and audiences.
Right now, people are looking to not be depressed, especially now there's a surge in cases again.
The biopic chronicles how tennis players Venus and Serena Williams, two black girls from the rough Los Angeles neighborhood of Compton, rose to superstardom through the support of their family and the tireless coaching of their father, Richard Williams. Will Smith produced the film and plays the lead role.
I think Will Smith is really in play to win an Academy Award there.
Venus Williams told VOA that the film champions black girl power.
The film was shot beautifully. All the action sequences were amazing. Of course, our family was very prominent in it, and I'm very excited that this film is hopefully going to inspire a lot of people.
Another critic's favorite is Belfast by Kenneth Branagh. Set in the capital of Northern Ireland, the film, inspired by Branagh's childhood, chronicles the life of 9-year-old Buddy in 1969. Branagh told VOA that despite the political and sectarian violence surrounding Buddy's life, the film focuses on family ties and community.
I think the film looks for a sense of compassion and respect and recognition and celebration of people's differences, something that is a tough subject for everyone right now in a polarized world.
Penelope Pulu, VOA News, Washington.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us in Washington, thanks for watching.